Apple is turning 50.
6 months from now, you can't run around and add a button to these things. They're already shipped.
While reshaping the world.
This is the new MacBook Air.
That history's now...
Legendary musician Paul McCartney once again proved his iconic status.
It is 3 p.m. on March 31st, 2026. For the first time since the campus opened, Apple Park isn't just closing, it's going dark. This isn't on any public calendar. To the outside world, Cupertino is quiet. But inside the most valuable 175 acres on Earth, a military-grade logistical heist is underway. Today is the 50th anniversary grand finale. But this isn't a party. It's an exercise in total information control. By the time the sun sets, Apple will have executed a $28 million operation designed to protect their past, secure their future, and ensure that not a single byte of data leaks from a vault that officially doesn't exist. Welcome to the industrial reality of the Apple Apex. To understand the absolute insanity of the finale, you have to look at the month-long global lead-up. Apple didn't just throw one party, they staged a worldwide logistical bridge. It began on March 13th with Alicia Keys at Grand Central, where the promoter's ledger was already bleeding six figures just for the iPhone 17 Pro cinematic capture tech. From there, the tour moved to Paris, where Apple Champs-Élysées was gutted to build a temporary French touch recording studio for Pedro Winter. The invisible labor here was staggering. Navigating Parisian heritage permits to install military-grade cooling for Mac racks in a 19th century building. All of this was a distraction, a global sleight of hand to keep the media eyes off Cupertino, while the real Apex was being built in total secrecy. Before a single guest arrived at the park, Apple had to solve a human logistics puzzle. They needed 1,200 of their top engineering leads on site, the men and women holding the blueprints for the next decade. In the promoter's world, you don't put that much intellectual property on commercial flights. This is where we see the first major line item, $6.5 million for the bridge logistics, 10 private Airbus A350 charters, each acting as a sterile environment. No public Wi-Fi, no external communication. These engineers weren't just being transported, they were being escorted into the bubble. By 10 a.m., the A-team was on the ground, moved via a fleet of nondescript SUVs through subterranean entrances that bypass the Ring's main lobby. April 1st, 2026, Apple turns 50. The company's valuation hits a mind-bending $3.75 trillion. To celebrate, they don't just throw a party, they perform a corporate Black Ops mission. They bring Paul McCartney, a literal Beatle, into the very center of their $5 billion glass fortress. But there is deep historical irony here. Back in 1981, a scrappy Apple computer had to pay $80,000 to McCartney's company, Apple Corps, to settle a bitter trademark lawsuit. 45 years later, Apple is the undisputed king of the global economy, and they are writing a blank check to make that same rock legend their private headliner. This isn't a story about a concert. Rock and roll is pure chaos. Apple is in absolute control. Bringing them together is a logistical nightmare. Transforming the meticulously curated courtyard of Apple Park into a stadium-grade rock venue requires military logistics, non-disclosure agreements, and a staggering $22 million burn rate. While the world was focused on Paul McCartney and the Rainbow Stage, Apple was actively housing and preparing to unveil its next generation of hardware, including the M5 Mac lineups and an ecosystem overhauled for advanced AI. This was the intellectual property that the militarized security grid was protecting. The $20 million concert was happening right next door to billions of dollars in unreleased research and development. The draconian security measures, the RFID geofencing, the automated red zone alerts, and the physical escorts for every single contractor were not there to protect a rock star. They were deployed because Apple was bringing thousands of unvetted third-party riggers, truck drivers, and stagehands into the exact same environment where multi-billion-dollar, unreleased technology was sitting. This is the hidden ledger, the invisible labor, The extreme engineering required when a trillion-dollar empire decides to throw a private party and then erase all evidence it ever happened. Apple Park is not designed for outsiders. It is a sealed ecosystem. It houses 12,000 of the highest-paid, secretive engineers on the planet. Its inner courtyard is a curated forest of drought-resistant trees imported from across California, resting over miles of subterranean R&D tunnels. A stadium rock show demands the exact opposite of secrecy and delicate landscaping. It requires an invasion. Hundreds of unvetted blue-collar roadies, dozens of 80,000-pound semi-trucks, tons of raw steel. At T-minus 14 days, the breach begins. An estimated $6 million was allotted for Apple Global Security to establish temporary logistics corridors. Thousands of third-party riggers, working for elite staging firms like TAIT and Stageco, are brought in. But they don't just walk through the front door. This is an invasion managed by algorithms. Over $3 million in union salaries were paid to contractors. Every contractor was subjected to an extreme NDA briefing. The moment a worker steps on campus, security slaps tamper-evident tape over their phone's camera. Taking a picture is a fireable offense. Leaking a detail is grounds for a lawsuit. You are not permitted to wander. If a rigger needs to use the restroom at 3 a.m., they do not walk alone. An armed guard escorts them. You are building a stage in the middle of a corporate utopia, but for the crew, it is a high-stress, sleep-deprived pressure cooker. By T-minus 10 days, the heavy machinery arrives. But there is a massive engineering problem. You cannot drive a fully loaded 80,000-pound semi-truck over custom-curated dirt. The soil compaction would instantly crush the root systems of the imported trees, effectively destroying the multi-million-dollar landscaping. To move the multi-million-dollar massive pieces of the rainbow stage into the courtyard, logistics crews have to build an invisible floor. They lay down thousands of interlocking high-density polyethylene, HDPE, composite mats. This isn't just about keeping the mud off the tires. It is pure physics. The operation relies on the fundamental equation for pressure, P equals F over A. By spreading the immense downward force, F, of the convoys across the vast rigid surface area, A, of the interlocking mats, the ground pressure, P, is kept below the critical threshold. The Earth barely registers the truck's weight. Without this temporary armor-plated road, Apple Park would have been destroyed by its own birthday party. At T-minus 7 days, the skeleton of the stage rises. This isn't a simple pop-up tent. It is Joni Ives' Rainbow Stage, a temporary architectural beast. Despite looking light, airy, and optimistic, it is an engineering nightmare. It comprises 25,000 custom-machined parts, including 30 uniquely curved polycarbonate blocks. More dangerously, its massive arches catch wind like a ship's sail. It is incredibly vulnerable to wind shear. Stageco riggers have to drive massive temporary structural anchors deep into the courtyard just to keep the multi-ton structure from collapsing under a rogue gust of Cupertino wind. And because this is an Apple design, good enough doesn't exist. Millimeter-perfect alignment is demanded. Exhausted stagehands, operating heavy cranes in the dead of night, are forced to align heavy polycarbonate blocks with microscopic precision. Every power cable must be entirely hidden. Every flight case must be vanished into subterranean tunnels before the sun comes up. By day, the 12,000 Apple employees look out their glass windows and see a magical stage building itself. By night, it is an industrial war zone. At T-minus 3 days, the tech goes live, and the audio engineers face their final boss, the building itself. Apple Park is a massive curved glass canyon. Pumping 100+ decibels of live music into a glass ring is acoustic suicide. The sound waves hit the curved glass and bounce right back, creating a catastrophic, destructive echo known as slapback. It should sound like playing a concert inside a giant tiled bathroom. To make Paul McCartney sound legendary, the crew cannot just point speakers at the crowd. They have to weaponize the audio. They utilize advanced acoustic beamforming. Using highly directional line array systems and intense digital signal processing, DSP, the engineers perfectly time the output of individual speakers. They create destructive interference patterns that literally cancel out sound waves heading toward the glass walls, while using constructive interference to shoot the audio energy strictly into the employee audience pit. They build an invisible sonic force field. They beat the glass. As the hours count down to the show, security tightens to a paranoid level. Apple doesn't trust NDA's honor system. They enforce them with code. Security utilizes a compartmentalized, geo-fenced tracking grid. Every single contractor wears an RFID-enabled badge linked to a temporary biometric profile. The entire Apple campus is digitally segmented. There are green zones, the pathways, the loading docks, the stage. And there are red zones, the R&D labs, the executive offices. The tracking is live and unforgiving. If a tired roadie takes a wrong turn and their badge pings an RFID reader near a red zone, the system doesn't wait. An automated alert triggers in the Global Security Operations Center. Security intercepts the contractor within seconds. The badge is deactivated. The worker is escorted off the property. The machine tolerates 0 errors. T-1 day, the Eagle lands. McCartney and his production team, MPL Communications, bypass standard security for a highly classified soundcheck. Even for a Beatle, navigating Apple's corporate red tape is unprecedented. March 31st, 2026, 7 p.m. McCartney takes the stage beneath the glowing rainbow arches. 12,000 Apple employees watch a music legend perform a set list spanning from Let It Be to Now and Then. The audio is flawless. The lighting perfectly reflects the spaceship's ring ceiling. For 2 hours, the corporate fortress feels like a stadium. Then, the final chord rings out. The crowd cheers. The stage lights cut. April 1st, 12:01 a.m. The moment the applause dies, the magic evaporates, and the brutal reality of the logistics machine resumes. Loadout begins instantly. The deadline is absolute. Crews are given exactly 72 hours to disassemble 25,000 parts, rip up the composite ground armor, and extract dozens of semi-trucks from the campus. They must erase all evidence the concert ever happened. By the time the global press starts writing about Apple's 50th anniversary valuation on Monday morning, the courtyard is silent, and the drought-proof trees are pristine. A $20 million event engineered to perfection, executed in the shadows, and dismantled before the world even realized it was there. That is the power of a $375 trillion empire.